Most people think they want to be wealthy. But if you watch closely, what most people are actually chasing is not wealth itself, it's the image of it. And the difference between those two things is where most people get stuck for years without realizing it. Because the image of wealth is loud, visible, and easy to copy. The reality of wealth is quiet, slow, and often invisible while it's being built. If you've ever felt like you're trying to move forward financially, but nothing is really changing, there's a good chance you're not lacking effort. You're just caught in what I call the identity trap. The identity trap is simple. You start trying to look like the person you want to become before you've actually built the foundation to support it. And at first, it doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like progress. You upgrade your lifestyle a little. You buy things that make you feel like you're moving forward. You try to match what you see other people doing. But over time, something starts to feel off. Your income doesn't match your expenses, your savings don't grow, and your financial situation stays exactly where it was, just with better packaging. That's not accidental. That's a system. I call this behavior cosplaying success. Not as an insult, but as a pattern. It's what people do when they feel pressure to look like they're doing well, even when they're not. And it's more common than most people think because it solves a short-term problem. It protects your identity. It helps you avoid the discomfort of feeling behind. But in the long run, it creates a much bigger issue. Because instead of building wealth, you end up funding the appearance of it. If you look around, you'll start to notice how this system works. The signals of success are everywhere. Luxury watches, designer clothing, expensive cars, curated experiences. And none of these things are inherently bad. The problem is the timing. When these things show up before the foundation exists, they stop being rewards and start becoming liabilities. And once that happens, they quietly lock you into a cycle that becomes harder to escape the longer you stay in it. There's a reason this pattern is so common, and it has less to do with discipline and more to do with psychology. The system you're operating in doesn't just sell products, it sells identity. It understands that people don't buy things because they need them. They buy things because of how those things make them feel about themselves. And once that connection is made, the price becomes secondary. This is where something I call the logo tax comes in. The logo tax is the extra amount of money you pay to associate yourself with a certain image. It's the difference between a product that solves a problem and a product that signals status. And once you start seeing it, it becomes obvious. Two items that serve the same function, but one costs significantly more because it carries a recognizable symbol. That extra cost is not about quality. It's about perception. And the system relies on this because it turns your insecurity into a revenue stream. What makes this even more effective is that it doesn't feel like you're being manipulated. It feels like you're making a choice. You convince yourself that you deserve it, that it's a reward, that it's part of becoming successful. But if your financial position doesn't support that decision, then what you're really doing is borrowing from your future to maintain a present image. And that's where the real cost shows up, not immediately, but gradually. You can see this pattern clearly if you look at a few common behaviors. The first one is what I call the whaling target. This is when you own high-status items that don't match your financial position. From the outside, it looks like success. But in reality, it makes you more visible to systems designed to extract money from you. Higher expectations, higher spending environments, and more pressure to maintain that image. Instead of protecting your money, it exposes you. The second pattern is the buy now, pay later loop. On the surface, it looks harmless. Small payments, spread out over time, manageable on a monthly basis. But what it really does is disconnect your spending from your actual financial capacity. You start living a lifestyle that your current cash flow cannot support. And because the payments are broken down, the total cost becomes less visible. Over time, these small commitments stack on top of each other until your income is already allocated before you even receive it. Then there's the new car syndrome. This one is particularly common because it feels like a milestone. A new car is often seen as a symbol of progress. But financially, it's one of the fastest ways to delay actual wealth building. The moment you drive it, it begins to lose value, while the cost remains fixed or even increases with financing. What looks like an upgrade is often a long-term obligation that limits your flexibility. Another pattern is the convenience premium. This is where you consistently pay more to avoid small amounts of effort. Ordering food instead of cooking, taking rides instead of planning ahead, choosing ease over cost without thinking about the long-term effect. Individually, these decisions feel insignificant. But when they become habits, they create a constant outflow of money that prevents you from accumulating anything meaningful. The upgrade illusion works in a similar way. You replace your phone, your gadgets, your tools, not because they've stopped working, but because something newer exists. It gives you the feeling of progress without actually changing your financial position. Your lifestyle improves slightly, but your net worth stays the same. Then there's the social media cost. This one is less obvious because it's tied to experiences rather than objects. You spend money on things not just to enjoy them, but to document them. Vacations, dinners, events. And over time, the purpose shifts from the experience itself to how it's perceived. You start optimizing for visibility instead of value. The safe money fallacy is another subtle one. You keep money in places that feel secure, but don't actually grow or protect your financial position. Or worse, you treat your savings as something that can be accessed easily, which turns it into a backup for your spending instead of a foundation for your future. And finally, there's invisible debt. This is the most dangerous because it doesn't always look like a problem from the outside. It can be a house you can barely afford, a lifestyle that matches your environment but not your reality, or financial commitments that leave you with no margin for error. You look stable, but you're under constant pressure. If you step back and look at all of these patterns together, they point to the same thing. Money is not just leaving your account. It's being redirected into maintaining an identity. And as long as that continues, building real wealth becomes almost impossible. The shift out of this is not complicated, but it does require clarity. You move from cosplaying success to actually building it. And that starts with a simple rule. Every dollar you don't spend on maintaining an image becomes part of your foundation. This is where the lockbox method comes in. Instead of letting your money circulate back into the same patterns, you separate it. You create a space where it's not easily accessible, not part of your daily decisions. This becomes your freedom fund, not money for emergencies in the traditional sense, but money that represents options, the ability to make decisions without pressure. At first, the change feels small. You cut back on things that don't actually move you forward. You become more intentional with your spending. You stop trying to match an image and start focusing on building something real. And over time, those small decisions begin to compound. Your financial position starts to shift, not dramatically, but consistently. The important thing to understand is that this process is not visible in the beginning. There's no immediate reward, no external validation. In fact, it can feel like you're falling behind because you're no longer participating in the same patterns as everyone else. But that's part of the process. Because while others are maintaining an image, you're building a structure. And that structure is what eventually creates real freedom. Not the kind that looks impressive from the outside, but the kind that changes how you live your life. The ability to make decisions without urgency, to invest in opportunities when they appear, and to step away from systems that no longer serve you. So if there's one thing to take from this, it's this. Master your mindset before you try to master money. Because if you don't, the system will keep redirecting your effort into places that feel productive but lead nowhere. And once you start building something real, you don't need to announce it. In fact, it's better if you don't. Because the strongest position you can be in is one where your progress is real, even if it's invisible to everyone else.